What's up, everybody?
What's up, everyone?
Mortal Kombat fans.
All of you out there.
We love you, fans. Thank you for being here, watching, listening to us. My name is Nathan.
I am Zach.
We are siblings, and you have joined us today to have another week of discussion and conversation.
Indeed.
Around religious trauma.
Let's redline there for a second.
Yeah, redline the religious trauma. Here on the Mortal Kombat podcast, we talk about religious trauma. We were both raised in the Christian evangelical church, and have both walked away from that church at different times in our lives. It's been about, I don't know, like 15 years for me. I've gone over the double. No, it's like 18 years for me.
Yeah,
I've gone over the double. I broke that, yeah. It's been like 10 years for you.
It's been like 6 months.
Zach's still reconsidering going back to the church, which is crazy. You know, after so much healing, he's ready to dive back.
No, I don't know. I just lingered. I lingered for a long time on how I identified. But I walked away around like 19, 18, but then I didn't fully start saying it till like 25.
Which, if you're curious how that has looked and the process has been for Zach or even me, you got 56 other episodes to go back and listen to.
Yeah.
But we know more people are listening now. So if you're listening now and you haven't listened before, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
We are in the process of having some new segments on our podcast, making it more of a variety show. Mm-hmm. We hinted at that at the end of our last episode. If you care, then go watch the entire thing and maybe you'll find a little Easter egg.
Or even better, just skip to the end.
Yeah.
Because it was really funny at the end of the last podcast. You just were like, started to spew all the beans. And I was like, hell yeah, spew at the end.
At the end, yeah.
Because if anyone's actually listening to the end, they should get all the beans and berries.
And we're getting, a lot of view counts on our shorts, which is how it goes, and not as much as our long content, which is we're starting to see some increases on it. Also, some of you wonderful folks out there in the internet land who had the benefit of the algorithm working in your favor and our content ending up in your feed. Yeah. And then you have DM'd us to encourage us. And you're from our past. You know who you are. Thank you so much.
Yeah, from like the deepest parts of our souls. Thank you.
And you know who you are out there if you're watching this or you see this, and you know how far back we go to our childhood. And so a lot of the trauma that we talk about here, you were there. And so there's nothing better than like me and Zach being able to text each other during the week and being like, oh my gosh, guess who texted the podcast?
Yep.
And it's a huge page-long message of just love, support, and also that y'all made it out alive as well, because Zachary,
not everyone does.
Not everyone makes it out alive. The sleeping, walking zombies of the evangelical Christian faith. It's real. That's where I think a lot of the zombie apocalypse movies come from, is literally just watching Christians.
Could be possible.
Is a brutal
maybe that was the start of the zombie.
Yeah.
Is just observing evangelical Christians and like that. Yeah. Let's make a film about that.
Just undercover directors.
But we need it to be seen, so we can't say it's Christian, because then, the governments can take it down.
I mean, yeah, you go into a church and they're like speaking in tongues and dancing to and shaking and hitting a drum.
All
and
in the corner in a wall.
Film it. Put scary music behind it.
Dude, think if you walked into like a Pentecostal church in the dark, like let's just say they had the lights off, it would look like zombies are like,
yeah, no, it'd be like,
yeah.
Not good.
Like that scene in I Am Legend where he's going through the broken down house and he's all like pointing the flashlight and he goes to that corner and it's all and they're just all
all just standing there.
It's
if you took that scene, meme, and you put behind it like Jesus, lover, and they're just all standing there like, it would totally work.
Be hilarious, dude. That'd be if we had the funds, that'd be a great short. That'd be if we could produce it right.
You want to know what's funny about us making the joke about evangelical Christians being zombies is that when you wake up from that dark, dark sleep that is encouraged when you're in the faith and you're an evangelical Christian, you've found the truth, right, Zach? It's like you found life. You found that's the food, the Bible. You're in it. You found the answer. And when you walk away, that's when the trauma hits, baby.
That's the only way it can hit, baby.
It's because you made it out alive and you realize that what it was that you were like told that you were eating and drinking, the fruit of life and the spirit and all of that. And then you break free and you're like, oh my God, I haven't been fulfilling myself with all the beauty and culture and spirituality of the entire world.
I've been holding my humanity away.
I guess I was more zombie-like then when I used to think everybody was zombie-like. Everybody else was the zombies.
And sadly, a child being raised in it like we were. You didn't know anything else.
Yeah.
And so until you broke off, you were like, wait, it was a lie.
It was a lie.
It was all a lie. Whereas to the other people that have, which I would love to have an interview someday of someone that like got saved at 17 and walked away at some point in their life. Because from what I've seen is normally if you get saved later in life, you stay Christian the rest of your life.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I know. I'm thinking of people right now that, I was, come on over to the youth group. It'll be fun. And they give their life to Christ, and then they're not Christians anymore. So,
oh, cool.
Yeah, oh, great for them.
No, seriously though, celebrate that.
One of the things that's hard about our podcast for us is we've been talking about our trauma for the most part every week for over a year now. And so we're really looking forward for other people, our guests, to be on our show soon to take some of the weight.
Yeah.
But
it is not easy talking about your trauma every Sunday.
This week is a harder week for me coming in to do this. Yeah. It's like, but what are we doing here, Zach? If we're not talking about our trauma on the Mortal Kombat podcast, that's fine.
Yeah.
But there's a difference between content and art.
Yeah.
And I think that like doing a show where you are putting your own personal history that doesn't really, no one deserves to know it if they don't need to, or you don't want to share. Nobody has to share anything. You don't owe anything to anybody.
No.
It can be really heavy to like every week be like, what are we doing here? Why are we doing this again? We've already talked about this. And it's because this has been a really artistic and cathartic way for us to make content around trauma. It's like art. Feels more artistic than it does just content based because it takes work and it's hard and it's not fun to talk about these things. And that's why it's really encouraging to have people from our past reach out.
It's incredibly encouraging.
And tell us that they really admire what we're doing and they encourage us to not stop. And so I don't want to be afraid, to be honest, that like, I don't even really want to talk about these things tonight.
Not at all, man. Today's a tough one. I like you mentioned having some anxiety prior. It's like, yeah, me too. I don't want to be here, dude. Like this is and it's not even like our topic tonight. It's just, it's hard to do this every week. Especially when it's not just like a comedy podcast. We're not necessarily having fun every time, and it does feel good. Every time we finish, it feels great, but still it can be really hard, and sometimes are harder than others. And today's a tougher one. But what I learned last Sunday, and I learned every single Sunday, is the times it's tougher are normally the best podcasts. And last Sunday felt very tough too. I didn't want to do it either.
Yeah. And I think there's got to be something to like, I have therapy, every week, right now it's every other week. And, there's so many times I just don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And it's like, but it's not about wanting or not wanting. I have this opportunity that I feel really lucky to have, which is I get to have a conversation about some things that are pretty deep seated that ultimately, if I can get to the core of them, or if I can have a fluid an intuitive conversation about it, I actually start to understand them a little better. And so we're really lucky to have this together, to have this space, to have this equipment. And
to have started this, man, getting over that like hump of just doing it. And it did start as like a shoot the shit comedy podcast for the first 10 episodes. And then when it led into this, it's like, everything happens for a reason, and it's synchronicity. And I think the cosmos had a way of making us do what we're doing right now. But now that we're doing it, it's like such a whole different experience.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that whole saying is that the cosmos pours from within. It's like the world's not happening at you. Or your experience isn't happening at you. It's happening for you. The universe is here for you. It's a gift. So use that gift and getting closer to that source of seeing the gift of life. This is part of our process, baby, is having conversations about our childhood trauma around evangelical Christianity. So let's jump in.
Let's go.
Today, we are talking about guilt, which is one really big, broad topic.
Yeah.
Every human being on the planet has guilt, survival, right? It's good to have guilt, right? Guilt's like a survival thing, right? If you're guilty about something, maybe it's because your body's telling you and your mind's telling you should fix it.
Yeah.
You did something bad.
Yeah.
Punching that person in the face. Do you feel guilty? Yes. Do you not? No. If you didn't feel guilt, that's bad.
It's a morality issue.
Yeah, exactly. So, but guilt that's used as a tool to help kids learn or force kids to learn certain ways.
Or control them.
Is pretty destructive.
Yeah. Or control your thoughts too.
Exactly.
It's one thing to be like, I murdered someone and I feel pretty guilty about it. Or I hurt their feelings and I called them names and I feel guilty. It's another thing to be like, I'm having thoughts and I feel guilty.
Just on that topic, if you tell a 10-year-old that if you look at another person and you wish they were dead, you might as well have murdered them.
Yep.
Right? Because that's in the Bible.
That's in the Bible.
You tell a 10-year-old that, you tell an 8-year-old that, you start to feel like every thought you have towards everyone else, you're murdering them.
Yep.
And you're writing a fine line. You don't want to have evil thoughts. So one way to teach a kid to not have evil thoughts is to scare the shit out of them that every thought they have that's bad is like being a murderer. That's a lot of guilt that can come from that. Well, we know what, as we're doing now in the cast.
Let's just fly through them.
We print out prompt questions to help us stay on topic and to keep flowing through these broad.
Stay on target.
Yeah, stay on target. Beckett, I miss it just off the surface. It's New Hope Star Wars. All right. Trauma of guilt. Question number 1. If we read these and we don't, because we're going in, as you listen and watch, we're going into, we've briefly gone over them quickly, but we don't really know where this will lead. Number 1, did the church teachings ever make you feel inherently sinful or unworthy? No.
Never.
I'm just kidding.
Not even the slightest. Never. Not once.
This could be a one-word answer. Yes.
And a lot of these are one-word answers when I was reviewing them. And that's what makes it tough is it's like, if I were to answer this properly, I would have the scriptures that made me feel that way. But of course I don't, and of course I'm not going to have those right now. Sure.
But let's just say, did the church teachings ever make you feel inherently sinful or unworthy? What's like a church teaching that you remember that and we could just go to the next question because it might be hard to think. There was endless teaching. Everything in church is a teaching, and our last podcast, we talked about the trauma of rituals, right? And a lot of those rituals were taught to us, right? These can be considered like church teachings. And so on the topic of guilt, there were so many rituals that are taught from church or ways to think. One of the ones that I was thinking a lot about is there's the whole verse in the Bible that talks about turn the other cheek.
Yeah.
Right. Or what I brought up earlier, which is if you look at another person, you think evil thoughts are deadly, you might as well just murder them.
Same thing with adultery. If you look at another woman.
Right. Specific to women.
Specific to women.
No, this is only for men.
Yeah.
In the Bible, it was like, if you look at another woman, you might as well be committing adultery. But if a woman looks at another man, well, that's not even a verse in the Bible, right?
Yeah. No, women don't look at men. Women have only one man in their life, and then they'll never look at another man.
According to the Bible, yeah. But that was a big one for me.
Yeah.
That teaching was like, before I even knew really what dating was or what it meant to be attracted to a person, it was like I would look at a girl and I would be like, boobs.
And you're committing adultery. This is what would go through my head. You're committing adultery on your future wife.
Oh, wow. That's a level of guilt.
100%.
Is that what you would feel?
I mean, dude, guilt ruined me as a kid. And so all of these questions is all I did is think about how guilty I was. Unworthy. This question is tough for me because I was raised in the faith. You were raised in the faith. I felt the most worthy. My life was based off of Jesus, but for some reason I still felt so guilty all the time and unworthy. But I when I would talk to myself as a kid, I'm like, dude, all I do is read my Bible. All I do is pray. If I'm not going to heaven, none of you are going to heaven. This is a lie. That's the way I would kind of think about it. But I still felt so guilty. So I think some of these other questions are going to get into some deeper topics.
So then but what you're saying is that this question being inherently sinful or unworthy, you're over here dude, I was born in the church. I never knew anything else. My parents were pastors. I was perfect at this. So I never felt unworthy.
Yeah.
But you still dealt with an immense amount of guilt in your life. Mm-hmm. How's that? How do you feel like the best or the most worthy and then deal with so much guilt?
Because worthy is not the right word, man. You're not worthy in the faith. No one's worthy in the faith. You're just a minute human. And God put you here to do one thing, worship. There's nothing else for you to do and to save people. It's a very like dark reality to be an evangelical Christian. You have one goal, and it's to love the man God up there, and to make sure that other people know that you love them and you have the truth.
And share the
truth. So it's like unworthy. It's like, could you be worthy of in this life? All you're waiting to do is die.
Yeah.
You're just waiting to go to heaven. This life is a poisonous world.
Yeah, and I feel like one of the teachings is that you're in this world of sin.
Yeah.
So the whole world is...
Don't be in the world, don't be
in the world, but not of the world.
Be in the world, not of the world.
So everything that was not of the Christian faith was guilty.
Yeah, 100%.
And if you weren't doing the Christian faith, like reading your Bible in the mornings, sharing the gospel, bring your Bible in your backpack, you'd feel like I'm not as good of a Christian as I could be.
I'm lukewarm.
Yeah. Yeah, black and white, hot or cold, nothing in between.
Nothing in between.
Question 2.
Yeah,
should we just jump in?
Let's move on.
Were you ever made to feel guilty for questioning or doubting church doctrines?
To be honest, I don't think I had the balls to question it.
Yeah, so this is where you and I have very different experiences, right? Because you just questioned it differently. I questioned it like, hey, Dad, the pastor of the church.
Yeah.
Hey, Dad, what if I didn't believe in this? And that's like, that's how I was as a kid.
Well, you just love to test the waters. You'd be like, I'm just going to say what I'm thinking and get their reaction. And the reaction may be bad. And you'd be like, okay, cool. Not going to say it.
So that's what I would do, right? What Zach's saying is I would literally, if I was 15 coming in the house from my friend's house and Dad was like, or Mom was like, are you drunk? Have you been drinking alcohol? No, I didn't start drinking until 16 and a half, no, whatever, 17 or whatever.
But you wanted to make sure you knew what would happen if you did.
I'd be like, what if I was?
Yeah.
And it's like, what asshole does that? You know, it's like a kid who's really confused about religion, trying to like think for themselves and feels really uncomfortable and guilty for doing it.
Yeah.
Is every little thing that's against the rules. I'm always like, well, what happens? Because I'm like testing to see what happens when I walk away from God.
Yeah.
It's like, what's going to happen if I tell them I'm not a Christian anymore?
It's like you unconsciously accepting the future.
Exactly.
And trying to figure out how you're going to get through it.
Yeah. So I told him, I was like, dude, I didn't even remember how I've told the story in the cast, even just a couple casts ago. Maybe it was the last one of how I did it, taking them out to dinner and all that crap. But it was like, I remember saying, like, what if I didn't believe this anymore? I remember even before I even went to my parents or even talked to anybody, I would have that thought.
Yeah.
And I would look up into the sky and be like, what if I wasn't a Christian? And I would feel all this fear and guilt and be like, wait a minute, hold on a minute. That's crazy. Like, what? No. So much guilt around that, even just that question. So I felt like that question, thinking outside of the Christian teachings or the Bible, was like a year. It was like a year long of just kind of fiddling with that idea. Like, you know what? We're just going to like, every once in a while, we're going to have that thought. And then it was my best friend at the time. I still consider him my best friend ever, which I would love to have him on this podcast. We'd go out to the park and he'd be like, I would feel guilty about these things. But then he'd be like, hey, check this out, man. Here's an idea. And he'd just say some crazy idea. Like one of the luckiest thing ever is having a friend that can like kind of step out,
kind of validate your agency a little bit.
And he's like, I know you have problems. You're the pastor's kid. You got serious issues. But me, I'm not really worried. I don't have as much guilt. My parents don't make me feel terrible.
I know who you're talking about, and having them as neighbors and as friends, I think was a privilege and a gift in our situation.
So lucky.
Because I got to see other evangelical Christians raised in a family that wasn't as extreme as ours.
Right.
And to see that they didn't suffer from the same things I was suffering from.
Very little guilt. No guilt, actually.
Yeah.
And no anxiety around when things like psychedelics started to come into the picture and it was like, let's go and do some shrooms and take a hike. I would deal with just overwhelming guilt and fear. And, they'd be like, I understand why you are. It makes sense, but I don't deal with that. And that would make me feel so crazy, but also really happy that I had somebody in my life who came from the church who didn't suffer from the same anxieties.
Yeah. Which is strange.
There's levels to this.
There's a correlation there.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, I'll read the next one. How often did sermons or teachings focus on guilt or repentance?
Isn't that what it's all built on?
Christians love to avoid the word guilt. You're never guilty.
Really?
Do you remember anyone saying you're guilty? Like, be guilty? It's repent, sinner.
Well, I think
you're
that
a
like
sinner.
I
repent.
think guilt was a really powerful tool because it was like, of course you're guilty. Have you come to God and asked for forgiveness yet? Have you asked for grace?
But we're all guilty.
The 2G, exactly. The
we're
guilt's a
born
huge
guilty.
God. That's a survival thing. God created guilt for a reason, right? It's like that's God's guilt. That's a good thing. And if you just go to God and ask for forgiveness, then you're all good, baby. Right? That's like literally what I felt like was like there's the grace of God and then there's the guilt of God.
And you got to go through the guilt to get to the grace.
Everything feels guilty if you're just trying to think a little bit outside of the box. So it's like one of the ways are you feeling anxious? You feel guilty? Yes. Well, one way you can get rid of that guilt, just come on back. Come on back and tell God you're sorry. God, I'm sorry. Oh man, I feel better.
Well, yeah, of course. You were told you were going to feel better too.
Yeah, I'm just ingrained.
Yeah.
Which lasted into so much of my, I could get so deeper, but how when I did walk away from the faith, the guilt lasted most of my 20s, into my mid 20s, into my romantic partners, relationships, my friendships, business partners, like standing up for myself, learning how to accept myself. Like there's all these levels of guilt, like, and I still deal with guilt and shame. We all do, but the level that I know that mine does feel directly attached to like confidence of my youth.
And it interferes with your ability to love yourself.
Yeah, 100%. You can't love yourself if you feel guilty.
Yeah. For everything you think and do.
Yeah, you can't be free with guilt.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you learn after you leave the church and you start to heal, you start to realize, oh, dude, nothing fucking matters.
That's the only way through it.
Like, dude, nothing actually matters. Wait a minute. It's all good. Everything matters and nothing matters. And then Christians are like, everything matters this is why. And you're like, dude, actually nothing you're saying matters right now.
Yeah.
Like, can we just let go about death for a little bit here? Like, who cares what happens?
Yeah.
Let's just be present here and now.
Yeah.
You know?
If you're basing your life off the time you die, you're not living.
Yeah.
Like, and that's kind of what being an evangelical Christian is you're consistently focused and thinking on when you're going to die, and you have to save everyone else before they die.
We've said this before too. The cheat code is just wait right before you die, then give your life to Christ. Boom, you're good.
Yeah, and just hope it's not a spontaneous accident.
Yeah.
You know, like car accident.
Yeah, here comes the semi. God, boom.
Yeah.
Damn it.
If you say God fast enough.
Yeah.
God, save me.
Please. They're right.
I didn't say the right things.
They were right. It's hot. Or you make it to heaven. It's so bright. It's so much gold.
Yeah.
Just horns. Oh, I want to. Don't take me back to Earth.
Yeah. Hell is just dance music. You're like, this is where I want to be.
Yeah.
This is where I want to be.
Heaven is just so bright, it's so loud, it's uncomfortable. Hell is just hot as fuck.
A consistent hell's tone of horns.
Yeah, just. Praise be. Oh my God. There's other Christians that have been there for like hundreds of years. You'll get used to it.
No, their ears are taken off. They've ripped them out.
Just straight skin.
Yeah.
Oh, no wonder why angels are different. They don't have ears.
Yeah. They take them off.
They can't hear shit.
They can't hear anything.
They just feel the tears of Jesus.
Which one are we on?
I think we're on number 4 here. Did the church use guilt as a means to encourage specific behaviors or actions? It seems like kind of repetitive it's of course, right? That's what we're talking about. It's like,
it's also hard to differentiate family trauma in the terms of guilt than, the religious trauma, because our family was different than other families.
And that's what it's like. We're not here on this cast trying to talk about, our parents. It's more of like, no, our parents were the church. And so for us alone have these conversations, right? It's like, we're learning the difference.
Yeah.
Oh, that was... The thing is that every majority of what we were raised by in our family were the church doctrines. Mm-hmm. There wasn't anything that swayed from it. Now, within those church doctrines that we were taught, there was so much amazing shit we learned from our father and mother that I'm actually in this cast started to learn a lot more about, being able to like hold on to the good things rather than all of the shame and Christian guilt that was attached to it. Specific behaviors would be like cussing.
A lot of guilt there.
Foul language.
A lot of guilt there.
So when I was like younger, right, I'd go into my room. Like before I even say what I'm about to say, like Zach, you created like all those fake cuss words. And I know kids do that, right?
Yeah.
Some parents are like, no cuss, like language, you get in trouble. But like ours was like, oh, well, let's come up with fake words that sound identical to the cuss word so that we can say them and we won't get in trouble. But there's always that little like fun guilt, you know? Like, what would you say? Like son of a finch?
I had different words for every curse word.
Like cheese and rice.
Cheese and rice is Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Spit is shit.
Yeah.
Fitch is bitch.
Yeah.
And the thing is sad is I'd get away with it. I would use these terms in anger too. And it'd be like, oh, well, at least you didn't curse.
Yeah, at least you didn't curse.
How much of a mark are you missing? That's so missing the mark on what even cursing is and why it's bad for kids to do if they're going to be doing it. It's like you're getting angry. That's why it's bad.
Right.
That's what you're using these terms out of anger.
Right.
That's why it's bad. There was no lesson there. It was just if you say those words, it's guilty, which led me to going in the backyard and just going fuck, because I had to say it.
Yeah.
I wasn't allowed to, and I had so much guilt. And I would just stack them up. I got to get them all out.
Ship it. And I'd feel crazy and I'd feel so good. Like kind of high, be like, oh my God.
But here,
and I'd leave the room. Okay.
Tell me if you relate to this. My guilt carried along with me. And so when I first was able to actually start going to school, which is way later, I wouldn't curse around anyone because I would still feel guilty if I cursed around anybody. It was more of like, no one can see me curse. I could go in the backyard and curse as much as I want alone and I wouldn't feel that guilty. I'd just be like, I needed to get it out. But I wouldn't curse around my friends. My friends all knew I had fake curse words. The fake curse words weren't just for the family and the church. It was like, no, I can't let myself curse around people. And I don't even know if that relates back to like, I'll get in trouble. But it really felt like I'd let God down.
Yeah, I think that like, there's like, that's something we're talking about. This shit lasts a long time.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think like using cuss words is like a good example of like something that's taught, that's just like movies are edited specifically for like the Christian families, like there's just so much around like bad, like there are words in the English language, in every language that are sinful words, not good words.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like cussing was. I think cussing for a lot of kids are bad words, but for us, it was like, no, that's like it's a sinful word to use. And so I think that, I didn't start really using foul language in public until like junior year of high school. And it was, what happened was I thought it was so cool. And that's not a cool thing to be like, oh dude, like fucking no fucking way, dude. It's like, you're not making any sense. You look like an idiot.
Yeah, you're 16. Who cares? Dude?
It's like
a lot of 16-year-olds do stupid stuff. And
then I was just like I don't know. I just like that's a good example. I think like let's use another example of like the teachings.
Let's just go here. Masturbate. Let's go to masturbation.
Sure.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Did you feel guilty masturbating as a kid?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I talk about it.
Totally.
Tell me about it, baby.
The thing is, it's like, was it taught in the church that masturbation is wrong? No, it was a lot more obscure than that. It was a lot more like...
Depends on what part of the church you were at. During a sermon with the entire church? No. At a men's group? Yes.
Yeah, there's like the men's groups where it's just men talking. Like there was always the masturbation conversation. Both youth pastors would ask me like...
Are you masturbating?
Are you masturbating?
What do you think about when you masturbate?
Yeah, like really direct questions where it was like, man, I feel really guilty around masturbating.
Yeah. And you're really invading my space right now.
Yeah. And so...
Which makes me feel even more guilty.
The guilt around sex, I think like, and I know that this question is in here. It talks about, we can just say it. The question is, how did the church teachings on sexuality and purity shape your self-worth and self-perception? Right? Because there's so much teaching around like man with woman, woman with man, one-on-one.
Married.
You don't have sex, no sex before marriage.
Married.
Right. And you have
to. But like not even just like, you can't have sex. It's like no attraction until you put that ring on and you say your vows. Then you might be able to touch your wife.
Yeah. And I think there's like different levels to it. I think for me as a kid, like I was breaking like the moment I had my first girl, I don't know, like girls and like sex and then other, like I was attracted to boys and I didn't really know what that meant. So I just canceled that shit. I felt every time that I thought a boy was attractive.
Canceled.
I don't even remember feeling it much more than that.
Yeah.
It would just be like, done.
Bury it.
It'd be like, oh, done. So I never actually fulfilled that feeling or understood that feeling until I actually started to deal with my mental health, which was the guilt, the shame. And so like masturbation growing up, like, you know, it's something that's, you know, if you do it too much, right? Like sinful, guilty.
Yeah.
If you do it at all, there's going to be room for guilt.
Yeah.
So every time that I masturbated, it was like guilty.
Oh yeah.
And then there was like plenty of times that, you know, the question's like, are you looking at anything? And it's like, of course. So I'm guilty immediately talking about masturbation because I'm like looking at, you know, something.
Underwear on eBay.
Underwear ads, you know, that I could find on any newspaper because our father had installed something called Covenant Eyes on our computers where every single day he'd get an email sent to him that was like different colors of sexual websites. So if there was any picture of a girl,
even if it was like a corner ad, he'd still get an email that would be like, one of your sons visited these sites.
This IP address, looked at this, real government, eyes on. So I think in our family or in our experience as pastors' kids, there was a lot in the home that was like very guilt driven. There was also like, so all that happened. There was all the guilt that came sexually about what I thought sexually about myself. That it made it like all of that guilt carried into my first relationship and my self-worth and my ability to say no, right? That's the other thing is it's like there was so much fear and guilt around sex in general, sex before marriage and all that, that when it came to me leaving the church, which I was still at my parents' house, I didn't have like many boundaries for how to say no to certain things or
the church doesn't raise you. And I'm going to say the church because I don't really blame just our parents for this. I blame the entire church. The church doesn't raise you to walk away or have any possibility of walking away or have any life that isn't the life they planned for you.
The most guilt thing you ever do is walk away.
And if you walk away, you're killing yourself. Might as well just be dead.
Yeah.
You're going to go to hell anyway. And so if you walk away and you've had no lessons on how to, one, have any safe sex for one, but two, have any lessons on what it means to have agency in a sexual relationship or relationship with anybody on your sexual preferences or what you want or when you want to have sex or when you don't want to have sex, but you haven't learned any of that because you weren't supposed to be having sex anyway, that you're not going to know what to do. And then you get put in a lot of vulnerable situations where you say yes because you don't know how to say no. And there's people that take control. And there's people that bad things just are going to happen if you're going to be a sexual being and not be taught how to be a sexual being.
Right.
And it gets really complicated, man. It's hard to not like openly say things we shouldn't say on this podcast.
And I think that like the guilt turns when it comes to like masturbation. Like if you have older men talking to younger boys and separating them from girls to talk with them to have specific conversations with them about their 12-year-old sexual personal life. If you do that, you're creating energy in a space that is super scary.
Yeah.
This is what it is.
Super scary.
Everything that has to do with sex is going to have, or
especially
sexual experiences.
Especially if you're not the parent of that kid.
Yeah.
That's the thing is I had really good conversations with my dad about masturbation that I remember, but I also had really bad conversations with youth pastors, not just one, multiple, and pastors.
There's like one conversation to have with your child about masturbation.
Yeah.
Hey, are you cool?
Yeah. It's not really good to do in public.
Good for you.
Don't do it in public.
You've made it to this age.
Yeah.
It's going to be fucking nuts for the next 3 years. Have fun.
Yeah. Your hormones are going to go through the roof.
Keep it in your room.
Yeah.
Keep it in the freaking room. I don't want to know. Just do your thing.
You know, it's like,
end of story.
I had friends that I made later that weren't Christian that I would hear of like what their dad told them or mom or whatever at 12 about masturbation. And it was just don't do it in front of anyone. Do it in your room.
Yeah, don't do it in front of anybody. That's bad.
It's not just do that in your alone time.
Make sure the blinds are closed.
That was all I had to worry about. Oh man, I'd feel so much safer masturbating.
Yeah, but if the parent comes up to you or the youth pastor comes up to you and they're like, "Did you masturbate this week?" and you're like,
"Did you this week
10 times? What did you think?" Well, about boobs.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
this is going to leave a mark for the rest of my young adult life.
I'm only laughing because it's just like pedophilia. Like it's just weird.
There's
dude.
levels to it.
There's levels to it where it's like, why are people that aren't my parents asking me if I'm masturbating and what I'm thinking about?
So around masturbation, which is always we could have multiple podcasts just on sex and and like about the traumas around sex.
That's where I think it should go, because I mean, the guilt, for me at least, the guilt of masturbation kind of left me pretty young, because I started to realize, I'm like, dude, what I do in my alone time, you all can like forget about it. But when it came to how I felt about women, how I felt about having sex, how I felt about having sex after I stopped believing in the faith, all those things came with walls of guilt that I am still, I always think I've broken them down, and I always find them building themselves back up. And I'm like, what the hell? Break that shit down. Like, where is it? And it's like deep-rooted guilt that I shouldn't be a sexual being. And it makes you like stuck.
Yeah.
And then you start to wonder why your relationship is suffering, and you're like, dude, I am really suffering right now.
Right.
And it's like really tough. And so like, that's when that question is like, did the church implant something in like, how do they say it here? The teachings on sexuality and purity shape your self-worth and self-perception. It's like, oh, dude, probably the most.
Right.
Probably the most.
Yeah, because it seems to be such a natural and healthy part of being alive.
If not the most natural and
healthy.
Then
when you're in a world that capitalizes capitalism on sex, beauty, and like the gender, all the gender that's, everything that's being broken down in the last 10 to 15, 20 years has been like fantastic timing for people coming out of the church too. It's why it's all happening.
Yeah.
It's why there's conversations like this happening, is because, capitalism, the church, all of these things are built around selling things. And so if you can make something really intense and overwhelming, it's going to sell. Sex sells. So sex already is like in our society such a profitable thing to put energy into and sell. And so the church uses that. The church uses the same shit that sells in Hollywood, just in a very different way.
Yeah. To control.
Ultimately.
What are the things that make you human? We're going to take those. We're going to make those illegal.
Because being a human is a sinful thing. It just is. Naturally, you're born here. You're immediately sinful.
Yep.
That's why you need Jesus.
How could you not have an immense amount of guilt if that's what you're taught?
You're born. You had no choice to be here. You didn't choose your parents. But ultimately, the moment you become of age to have agency and awareness, you're like, wait, you're telling me that I'm a sinner because I'm here. So I need Jesus to be able to free myself of this sin.
But then even after you have Jesus, everything you do from here on out is going to be filled with guilt. But you're not saved.
But you have access to the grace of God.
Didn't feel like it. But the book says
it did to me.
It didn't to me.
To me, it was like guilt, go to God, gone.
Not me, man.
Really?
I don't think God heard me. That man, I would, and this is super vulnerable, but might as well on a vulnerable podcast. But every shower I would take, I would get on my knees and bawl my eyes out asking for forgiveness.
Like as a kid?
As a kid. And like up
for
until.
What?
Who fucking knows, dude? I think back on it often, wondering what I was doing, why I was so scared, and why I was so guilty, and why I was crying.
So as somebody that's, we both have deal with and have dealt with a lot of our anxiety and depression, have been on and off meds and believe in the powers of psychedelia and plant medicine and all that. So if you were more prone to depression and anxiety in our family, which we know in our bloodline, it's very much huge.
Yeah.
Most families deal with this.
Well, and I was the more anxious, depressed kid.
Seen as like a 3-year-old, they were starting to see signs that like your emotional responses to things were different than me and Natalie. Yeah. And so it was kind of, the writing was on the wall. So would you say that the church teachings like assisted in your mental health? Then your anxiety, like
100%.
So like,
100%, dude. Also being withheld from public school.
So the way that you would feel, we're talking about 4th grade, 5th grade.
You're talking like
13.
Since I had my first
10.
Anxiety mental break at 10, from then until about 16, when I started to be like, I'm so tired of living this life.
It's like before going to school, skating with your friends, whatever, you would be dealing with like immense amounts of guilt and anxiety.
I think that's why I loved skating so much, is it was the only thing that got me out of my head.
That's interesting. I like that what things help you feel like no matter what you're going through, what is it that takes you completely out of the world and you're just like, okay, when you do that thing, you know, and like skating was your thing.
Skating was my thing. Basketball was my thing for a while, but music took over everything, man. Once I really started to accept my talent as a musician, but then also like songwriting and loving listening to music and creating music. Like once I gave into that, that was everything. And that took over the last
most of
my existence has been, I need music to be everything.
It's a medicine.
Yeah.
Art is medicine.
But I've also reflected back on that as has music been my everything because it was my way out.
Yeah. So as you heal and grow,
who knows? I mean, I think
maybe music can become a hobby rather than like a necessity to get through the life.
As you always say, it's the second you accept that, then it's going to blow up.
Yeah.
It's like the second you're like, I don't need any of that. I just love doing it. It's like, boom, now everyone's going to love it.
That means you're ready.
Yeah, I guess
that means you're ready for that ego trip.
Yeah, it would be a huge ego trip, man.
Of course. I mean, the pressures.
Yeah.
Also, the ego is a part of who we are. So like if that were to happen, then you get to practice how to balance that life.
Yep.
That's just like we're practicing how to balance this, being vulnerable and honest about our past religious trauma, talking about some really vulnerable things, and then recognizing how some videos blow up and you're like, well, that really sucked to talk about, but I'm so, wow, look at that. Like I look pretty good. Look at those views. You know, so there's always life of being presenting anything. You deal with some ego. And I think that that's totally normal and healthy.
Yeah.
If you didn't have an ego, then you didn't feel the ego. How would you put boundaries around that shit, you know? That's why getting famous and super, super famous, because we're on our way of becoming so famous from this podcast.
Famous.
No, but like what we learned in Blouse, and I've said this before on this cast, is when we had our interview with Laid Back Luke, he was like, no, like it's so much better to become successful later in life. Like just, you have so much to learn. And it was like, man, I want it now. And then it's like, that was over 10 years ago. And I'm like, yeah, I'm so happy.
Oh my God.
Because it would have been great to be rich and famous, but man, the things I've learned now about love, relationships, priorities, life, religious trauma, like, you know, it's just...
The trauma would have come out differently.
Oh, yeah.
And it came out in a lot of crazy, drunken anger nights that were kept here. And so it was like, you and I know shit. Some other people know some stuff. There's some stories out there. That's it. If we would have had any fame, man, would that religious trauma and our trauma in general would have been a lot more people would have seen it. And it's a lot harder to like recover from it, I would think.
Yeah, I could have been canceled for anger.
And there was so much, man. I think I've said this before in this podcast. I know you have too. I'm so surprised we're still like talking as brothers. We've gone through so many hiccups that like after we won White Wonderland, if things really would have taken off the way they were supposed to, you know, the way we were told by these big managers and stuff.
If a kid didn't come into my life.
That's what we say. That's kind of our out. It's like the kid got us, but it feel like it was fate. And I feel like it was the cosmos like, you're not going that way. Because I don't think we would have made it through. I mean, I'm not like alive. I think we would have been alive. I just think our relationship would have probably crashed and burned because, man, would fame have changed everything? And would have money? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's like we never really got the money ever. We had a moment where people thought we were getting the fame, but we never got the money. And if we would have ever gotten the money, I know for me, that would have changed everything. And I would have tractor beamed in, dude.
We would have figured it out because I mean, ultimately, I've never not been on a process of healing and growth.
Yeah,
we're talking about when we were DJs, and this came up because you were talking about skating, and I was thinking like, you know, I was a drummer. I only wanted to be in bands. Why was DJing? You know, why did that take my life? Or it was because when I was DJing on a stage, I didn't have any issues. There were no issues. There was no anxiety. There was no guilt. There's no depression. There was no like
performing
insecurities. It was like, no matter how nervous I felt, the moment I was there was like, oh, this is a safe space, which we've got a little bit here on these cameras. So that's what's nice.
Yeah.
Let's keep going. We got about maybe like 10 more minutes here. Yeah. So, where were we? How did the church's stance on morality impact feelings? We're going to go to, were there specific sins or actions, question 7, that the church emphasized more, leading to heightened guilt? think we kind of already
feel
talked
like we
about
just
that.
went over that, yeah.
Question 8. Did you feel guilt about not meeting the church's expectations in terms of evangelism or outreach?
No.
Yes. You first.
I feel like we did everything very well. And I feel like when I would look at other people in the church, it was like at 12, I've already got on more outreaches than the 50-year-olds over here. And a lot of ego, man. So much like looking back at it, it's like the guilt and the egotistical side of the evangelical Christian church is so thick.
And you're the victim.
When you're the victim,
you can do no wrong when you're a victim.
Exactly. And so when I would feel prideful about like the things I was doing as an evangelical and the mission trips we were going on, and like at 14 at the Tenderloin, getting someone to get saved. I did it. Want to know why? Because I'm a pastor's kid and I've been trained since birth. I'm meant for this. It's like the ego and the pride was so thick that like, no, I didn't feel guilty. I felt like I was doing the best until I walked away, or until I stopped wanting to be there. Then I felt pretty guilty.
So then, so this questions is saying the expectations in terms of evangelism or outreach. Well,
I guess later in, yeah.
So after you walked away from the church, you felt guilt for doing that evangelism and outreach?
Oh, yeah, dude. Oh, I feel so guilty for the things I did as a kid.
We had a really close friend of ours from the past that we haven't talked to in forever who messaged us, who specifically gave us a topic that asked us to talk about. And that was kind of around this, was like having guilt about past relationships where you were like outreaching or evangelical to them, friends, people at school where you're like, you need to give your life to Christ. And then you walk away from the faith and you're like, you have these memories, you can see them, you can feel the conversations and being like, I can't, and you're disgusted with yourself for being that person back then.
Yeah.
When it technically, was it your fault?
No,
did you know any better? So the guilt comes in rippling effects.
Yeah.
It hits in multiple ways. It's like you can feel guilt for not being a strong evangelical, which we all felt. We all felt guilty for not going out there and sharing the faith, even though that's what we would do. So I would always feel that, where it was like, what am I doing in my life right now to be a community, reaching out to the community? There's always something that was going on. And for us being pastors' kids, it's like it was natural. That's what we did. We went to it's dad's job.
Yeah.
I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
It's like half the reason why I'm a freaking nurse.
Yeah.
I didn't know what else to do. This is what I do. You help people. You just go out.
Yeah.
That's how I was always pitched at being like, you're just helping people. And it's like, no, we're like telling them what they believe is wrong. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're telling them they're sinners and they need Jesus. We're not helping them.
No.
I guess at the time we thought we were saving their lives.
The same thing we were told at like 4 and 5. You're a sinner, you need Jesus.
For me, there's the reason why I was president of the Christian club at the middle school, 7th and 8th grade, was because I was doing the Lord's work and I wanted to make my dad proud. So there was a part of, having a dad that's a pastor where you want to be like your father. It's like having a dad that's a surgeon, or having a dad that's a race car driver, or having a dad that's an actor. You might want to be, who doesn't want to be like their dad? You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's like a pretty common thing.
At least in your younger years. Yeah, for sure.
Your younger years. You want to live up to your dad's expectations. So when I would put myself into like the role of being a pastor, like I'm going to do a teaching, which was like encouraged. Nathan, do you want to teach a little Bible study before youth group tonight? 10 minutes. Oh my God, I'm so nervous. Yes, of course. Because if I didn't, then I wouldn't be doing the Lord's work. And the Lord's work is making my dad proud by being this evangelical Christian on a stage for others to hear.
The Lord's work is saying yes.
Exactly. But also I didn't even have a thought about it. It was like, oh my God, this, not only there was pride. I'm meant for this. I was born for this. I'm good. I was good at it. And so there was like, if I don't do this, I'm going to feel guilty. So I never even got to the point of feeling the guilt because I preemptively felt it, knowing I'd feel it. Plus, I want to make my dad proud. Plus, I want to be
interesting.
Like, you know what I mean?
I like that you brought that up, because I feel like a lot of the reasons why you do things as an evangelical is to avoid the guilt you're going to feel if you don't.
Yeah, because you know what it does feel like.
Totally.
If you do more, you feel less.
Yeah.
Actually, you feel pride.
Yeah.
And confidence. You feel good. And so bringing my Bible to school, I didn't have to. My son just asked me this. He was like, Dad, because he's in the same grade, 7th grade. And he was like,
oh my God, that's so wild.
Why would you bring your Bible to school? And I was like, I I don't really know. And he was like, you didn't have to. It's not like Momo and Grandpa, his grandma and grandpa. He's like, it's not like grandma and grandpa forced you to, right? And I was like, not technically, no. And he was like, so then why'd you do it? And I was like, they didn't force me. Nobody forced me, but I wanted to make them proud.
But they did encourage us to take our Bibles with us.
I was like, I wanted to make them proud. And he was like, what do you mean? And I was like, that's where the guilt is. I want to make my parents proud. Ultimately, our dad is a pastor. I want to make the church proud. The church was proud of me.
Yeah, they were.
They reinforced that.
Until they were so disappointed.
Oh, yeah. And then when I walked away, it was like, bye-bye.
Yeah, it was like, talk about conditional love.
And at that point, I was so canceled out. I was like, yeah, give me the guilt.
That's how you dealt with it. Dude, it's so sad to think back to. And I haven't fully realized this until we started this podcast. We started opening up together, that I realized your position in all of this. That like at 15, you just got completely like exiled from anyone that you knew. And then who else did you know? The people you were trying to like make friendships with. So you just kind of attached to them. And a lot of them were like narcissistic, controlling people that did other things to you and manipulated you in different ways. And it was just like, you were just at 15 from such a young age. Like Evan in 3 years was just, instead of being like the love and care that kid needs, they were just like, man, you're doing the wrong thing. Man, you're doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, and we're disappointed.
And you're like, well, I can't change myself. I can't change my mind. And that was it. And then like, no more support for Nathan.
Yeah.
Everyone make sure you give him no support. So he has to come back. Yeah. You didn't. Thank God you didn't, dude.
Yeah. No.
Sorry, I know I just went off track there. But every time you bring that up, man, it hits this emotional core for me because it didn't feel that way for me. For me, it felt like you were leaving and you were lost. Because I'm a young kid.
Right.
And then which is now, but like until I realized that, like I've rejected those thoughts on what truly happened there.
Don't you think that that's why you and me have a relationship that's not only a relationship still, but it's growing and we're still wanting to do art together? Is because like given our differences and our issues, which can be conflicts for us, we recognize that a lot of our brotherhood and a lot of our relationship with each other had insane constraints and like attempts like that. Ultimately they ripped, like the church and this religion tore our relationship apart.
Well, it did. We can't get too honest with it. I really wish we could just be like, hey, this is like the truth of what happened to us as brothers, but I don't really want to do that to our parents.
But that's why I think that's like why when you see me that way, it's really powerful, because I know that you are starting, like, especially when we've had this podcast, but like, yeah, my experience back then really was the only way I knew how to deal with the loss of my brother and my parents. And, like our sister was getting married, and like, there was all these things where I was already so conditioned and I'd already been pushing buttons and doing things that I knew it was going that way. Like there was no, like, it wasn't shocking, like, but we've talked about in this podcast that when I, got kicked out of the house, and there was that night and I walked into your room and sat on your bed and you were sitting there and you were so young and you were so like scared and you were like, you smoked weed and you were like having the craziest anxiety and like all this stuff. And I remember sitting next to you and,
snuck in.
I snuck into your room really quick.
We weren't allowed to see each other.
And at that time, I remember this, dude. I remember this. I was so hurt at that time that I didn't feel anything that night. There was a lot of anger, but I didn't feel anything. I just felt it over the next 10 years.
Yeah, 100%.
And our relationship felt it for 10 years. And yeah, that's why this podcast matters a lot to us, is because we've been trying to do art together, and we've been doing art together, and we started our own solo projects. And then it was like, here we are.
Yeah.
And I think that like what is amazing is that at some point we all have an opportunity to face it, to like try to see things more clear, to face that childhood guilt, to face that pain, to face that confusion. And we had very different experiences. And that's why these topics and these conversations are fun, because I guess the fun isn't the right word, but it's enlightening.
Yeah.
Because we get to see each other who ultimately suffer from religious trauma, that are healing in the moment and growing out of this, literally growing out of these constraints and these issues and getting closer together, not just to each other, but to our partners, and not accepting, but being able to not allow the problems of our parents and the problems of the Christian church to be our problems anymore.
Yeah.
Because part of the religious trauma and the guilt and the healing from that and trying to rise above it is seeing each other, having space, to being like the same thing I've said before, what Jesus said on the cross, you say to other Christians, forgive them, Father, for they don't know what they've done, what they do.
It's like, now you just reverse it.
You just reverse that shit. But like, you didn't know. So much of my life accepting my own self and my own guilt was like, I always had to let you, like, give you space.
Well, I was blinded with anxiety at that point too. I was dealing with chronic anxiety that wasn't even labeled as anxiety yet, and therapy wasn't big yet. And so I was getting no help besides, Zach, just pray more. That's all I was told. And so the person you were like, oh no, I smoked weed with him. Oh no, and his brain's collapsing, is like, because I just had nothing and you were watching me in nothingness and you were like, Zach, it's gonna be okay. I can't even feel anything right now. It's because it was just like a mess, dude. When I think back to it, it was like such a mess.
Well, I felt a lot of pain for you. I was so scared because I felt like a dad to you at times, and it was
100%.
Like, kind of was,
Yeah. Especially then, especially in that moment, particularly, like you were my dad at that moment. Yeah. And you were the only person telling me it was going to be okay from a human standpoint, not a Christian standpoint.
Right.
And fuck, man. Yeah. There's a lot of trauma there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of trauma in that moment of my life.
Both of us.
I feel like dealing with those traumas are a little different than dealing with religious trauma.
Well, it's familial. And I think that like everyone has familial parental trauma and sibling trauma. It's like being part of a family, being in a relationship, any romantic relationship requires hard work, and there's going to be arguments and disagreements that are going to hurt, and there's going to be some separation and then anxiety and then coming back together and healing and growing and healing and growing. And that's suffering is such a huge part of what it means to be human. It's quite beautiful the more you try to learn how to accept and surrender. It seems like all of the really strong and good things in life come from really hard work, which is ultimately hard work is suffering. And so this is hard work, going back to those places and thinking about them. But thinking about that part of our childhood was like, you didn't choose that. I didn't choose that. So there's just a difference when you have to suffer by things you didn't choose.
100%. But then my pessimistic self goes, but it happened.
Right.
And you still have to deal with it.
Oh yeah, you have to. Yeah. All of us have to go. It's like when, another saying in the Bible is everyone has to meet their maker.
Yeah.
So that's between you and your God when you die. I'm like, that's between me and my God, which is me every day.
Yeah.
Everything that I do is between me and me. Yeah. That's what taking responsibility is. I'm going to meet my maker every day, all day, every day, the moment I wake up. That's why gratitude prayers are so powerful. It's because you start the day with gratitude, and that's a great way to meet your maker.
Yeah.
By just saying thank you for having life.
It is powerful. And it's very powerful just to remind yourself of the good things in your life.
Yeah.
Because I think when you're in dark places, at least for me, speaking from a personal stance, I don't think I even want to think of happy thoughts. Like my brain just doesn't want them. And so I'll sometimes, after you brought that up, try to force myself to say out loud some things I'm grateful for. And it feels gross and I don't want to, and I'm angry, and then I start to feel a little better.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's really strange.
Powerful.
It is really powerful. Being grateful is very powerful.
Well, I'm grateful for you, Zachary.
Yeah, me too, man.
I'm
grateful for you as well.
Yeah, I'm grateful for me.
I'm grateful for me too. Ego.
From guilt to gratitude. There it is, folks. Not bad.
Not bad, baby.
We touched on some good stuff.
We did.
Okay, we forgot to turn on our fun lights behind us. So welcome back to the
Game Cam
here on the Mortal Kombat podcast. We like to play Mario Kart 64.
And ladies and gentlemen, tonight we are starting the 6.0s.
It is 6.0s. We really believe in connecting with your inner child here on the Mortal Kombat podcast. One of the ways that we do that is playing the video game we played as children while we were embracing religious trauma in the moment.
Yep.
And that's Mario Kart 64. We play the battles. And we've done this so many times because we're actually having more and more fun every week. It's like, let's get through the conversation so we can play some Mario Kart.
Seriously. You recording, yeah?
I'm pretty sure. I'm positive.
Okay, he's positive. We're just going to go for it.
But now every time if you ask the question, I have to check.
I know.
I will check.
Okay. We've done it too many times where we didn't record.
If you're hearing that I'm Yoshi today, baby, you might as well be Toad. We'll just go to Toad.
Nathan was always Yoshi growing up.
Yes.
And I don't remember what I always was. I just always wanted to be Yoshi because Nate was, and so I think I was Toad.
If we're recording, you can see my face.
I'm going to be Toad. I'm going to go back to the old days. I think this is what the characters were supposed to be, yeah.
Yoshi and Toad, baby. The fastest drivers on the game.
Yoshi is the fastest, for sure. By a landslide.
Here we go. Big Donut 6.0.
Big Donut.
Which I like Big Donut because it's a little bit less stressful. There's not as many levels and all that.
It does go quicker.
Here we go. All that music you're hearing in the background during Game Cam is yours truly, Nene from the Bay. Game tracks here on the Mortal Kombat podcast. Okay, not a good start. I'm off. I am the top screen. That is Yoshi. Give me that. Ooh.
You just take my red shell?
Is a bummer, dude.
That is a bummer, dude.
That is a bummer.
Oh, no. This is not looking strong.
Where are you going? Come back.
Okay.
Wow, you got another star. Oh, yeah, you didn't do that turn well, did you?
Nope.
Here we go. You better get something. Here we go. Nice. Man, that's really good.
I got something.
It's really good.
Oh, you came from the side. He sideswiped me, folks.
I did, because I've been playing the game long enough that I remember how to get you when you had something on your butt. Where are you going?
I don't even think I ever processed that you could do that. No way, dude. Yes.
No!
Yes. No. No!
Yes!
Wow, dude. Jeez, really reminding me of the good old days right now. All right, Nathan 1, Zachary 0.
Best out of 3, right, buddy?
Best
This
out of
is your
3.
chance, Zach. Bring it back. Boom! I was trying to get that boost. I just redlined. I'm sorry. You got the red shell first. That's always a bad start is when you get the red shell first. You know, it's like if I had the red shell first, I'm going to keep going around and around until he comes to kill me. Here we go. Banana. Yes! Boom! Hit that. Oh, you almost hit that block, baby.
I did almost hit it.
Hello, he's got the star. Here he comes out the corner gate. Wait, where'd you go? Oh, there you are. Oh, hello. Remember the last game where it was just Star City?
No!
Yes. Yes. This is so good for me.
This is not, the 6.0s are not starting strong. I just want to remind everybody I did very good on the 5.0s.
Oh, you got another star. Wow, you almost got me there.
Dude, I hate it when we get all close like this.
You know, it's time. Come here. Come here. Where you going, baby? Come on back. Oh, we got the bananas. Boom! Oh,
didn't get me.
How did you not get hit?
Didn't get me, daddy.
Come on.
Oh, yes. Man, you are good with those
nice
side
swipe, baby.
A lot of bananas, dude.
Whoa! Landmines.
You're lucky you got that.
Come here.
Every time we're up in these little dark corners, I always just feel like I'm sliding into a dark hole.
Yeah, I know. They pull you into the wall.
Oh, you think I'm not going to learn? You think I'm not going to learn from you, baby?
Sideswipe me, baby.
I didn't.
You did not learn.
Yeah, you're not going to. Sorry.
You know I'm about to get you, bro. You know I'm coming in hot. You know I'm faster than you. Here it comes to the side. Oh, too late. I'm out. Bye. Bye. Ooh.
You get another star?
Come here.
No. Leave me alone.
Come here. Yes. I lost a balloon to get that one.
Dude,
that was hot.
What is
that was hot.
What is the science behind when I see you with the star behind me? My thought process isn't like, okay, weave out. It's always like, don't hit him. I just go right into you.
Yeah, there he is. Get him.
Yeah, I just can't avoid you for some reason. Damn, dude. Well played. Great work, man.
I think it's like a wave, right? It's like I win, then you win some, then I start winning some.
Yeah, it is. It is like there's some energy there. We'll probably figure it out once we pass on from this life what that energy is. But you definitely tap into something, and I definitely tap into something. And the best games, we're both tapped in. I was not tapped in there.
I mean, that's why I like the Big Donut, is because it's quick.
Yeah.
You don't have too much you can do.
Yeah.
You just drive and go.
Next week's block for it. That's the longest one for sure.
Here we go again. We're like looking forward to the game, not the trauma.
Of course, dude.
That dopamine release, baby.
Same as our childhood. I looked forward to the game, not the church, dude.
True. Yeah. I was like, after church, we could play video games.
Finally, yeah.
All right. I'm going to say turn the garage on, but don't clap because I'm bringing in the music when the lights hit. The last time it was like we were both off and the music hit in between. It was just like, I
got you.
Echo, garage on. Oh, you would have had it.
I know.
You would have got it. Well, that's it, folks.
That's all we got for you today.
Thanks for joining us, and we will see you in a week. My last acting class is this week over the year is Tuesday night, doing training day.
And I'm just going to put it out into the universe, especially when we say things on this podcast. It's definitely out in the universe. Nathaniel did say that after this acting class was over, he wanted to fill his time with something else more artistic, like getting us ready for some interviews.
Yeah, that's right.
And so very soon, folks, I believe you are probably going to see some fantastic interviews with some wonderful people.
Soon you're going to be seeing Zachary, and then you're going to be seeing Nathan, and then you're going to be seeing an angle that goes behind you.
Yep.
The camera, what happens behind you? You're about to find out.
You're about to find out.
Whenever it happens.
We also are going to have a really fun little thing we're releasing too.
By next weekend. That's it. We have to get it done by next week.
Oh, we will.
And we'll put out our new segment.
Yeah.
Does it heal?
Does it heal?
All right. Love you, buddy.
Love everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.